Hi, this is Cherylyn L. Tompkins coming to you from the 14th Annual Tulane Environmental Law Summit, and I'm with Gowri Koneswaran. She spoke earlier today in one of the symposium sessions, and it was talking about the low carbon diet, talking about what's going on with our food, the environmental impact of what's going on with our food, especially the consumption of meat, how the overconsumption of food in this country is also affecting other countries in Africa, India, all around the world, and what we need to do to start making a better and healthier impact, not just for our diets, but for theirs.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me today. One of the main things that we talked about today during our panel is the impact of meat, egg, and dairy production on the planet. It impacts our water quality, our air quality. It's contributing to climate change. Very surprisingly to many people, a few years ago, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization found that animal agriculture globally contributes more greenhouse gases, which are implicated in climate change, than transportation. More than all the cars, trucks, ships, airplanes combined, meat, egg, and dairy production are contributing to climate change. In the United States, most of our meat, egg, and dairy products come from what are known as factory farms. Not only do these factory farms commit grievous assaults on animal welfare, but they're notorious for the public health and pollution problems they create for local communities. And when we talk about the sort of standard American diet, which has now become very meat, egg, and dairy centric, versus maybe a more traditional diet from years ago, or more traditional diets from some other cultures that many of us are from, one of the main ingredients of meat, egg, and dairy production is grain feed to fatten farm animals, keep them alive as long as it is that we keep them alive before they're slaughtered for food. And about 40 to 50% of all the grain grown in the world goes toward feeding farm animals. The United Nations Environment Program has said that if we could stabilize meat consumption in industrialized countries to the rates that we were consuming even just in the year 2000, that by 2050 we would free up enough grain to feed 1 billion people every year. And so not only are we contributing to environmental problems, animal welfare problems, public health problems, human health problems, but this also plays a role in the hunger issue that is impacting so many countries and so many populations around the world.
And we did discuss it earlier, talking about how a vegetarian vegan diet, we both are vegan, and so we got to eat lunch together, how even a person transitioning, especially if you're talking about being an environmentalist, I talk about it, how being vegan vegetarian is one of the most environmentally ways to eat, but I know it's challenging here in New Orleans, but talking to people, you can't talk to them about fighting the good fight if they're also consuming and eating in a way that contradicts what it is that we're doing here.
That we're promoting, absolutely. And I think particularly in the context of climate change, we're all looking more at our personal consumption patterns. So consumption of energy, we're changing our light bulbs to compact fluorescent light bulbs. Consumption of fossil fuels in other ways. We're trying to reduce how much we drive, trying to carpool more, use public transportation more. That same way, we really need to turn the spotlight on how we eat and what's on our plates and what we consume in that way. And it is an enormous boon to the environment, to communities that are impacted, to animal welfare, if we just start reducing our meat consumption and ultimately replace our meat consumption. And what's really interesting and encouraging to me is that this call to reduce our meat consumption is coming from people like Rajendra Pachauri, who's the head of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They're the group that won the Nobel Peace Prize a couple of years ago along with Al Gore. He's saying the most immediate thing we can all do to mitigate climate change is to eat less less meat. Germany's Environment Department has encouraged its citizens to eat less meat for its environmental impacts. The European Parliament draft report on climate change addresses eating less meat. And of course, health practitioners the world over have been talking about eating less meat from the human health perspective for all of the personal health benefits it can bring about, in addition to how it impacts these other issues.
Right, because we didn't even fully go into, with the health impact, how animals now are being raised in order to quickly get them to be slaughtered, what they're being fed, and how that is no longer nutrient rich. They were before eating grass, now it's gone to corn. You might as well just be filling them with high fructose corn syrup, because that's the same way that they're then putting that grain into our food, and we see that it's not helping us or our bodies. We have the incidences of cancer, of diabetes, and the heart disease. The list goes on, and there's a reason why this is a direct link with an environmental link, and for us, I think the reason why I did, of course, I told you earlier, was for the health impact, but now we have to look at the fact that the food administrations and the agricultural entities are not necessarily looking out for what we're wanting to do, which is to lead a healthy lifestyle. We also have to kind of throw in there the health issues, also the pharmaceutical issues, and you wonder if this is all a tie-in. However, I think for you talking about this, it's bold first and foremost, because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They've gotten really stubborn about wanting to eat their meat, just as they are been really stubborn about wanting to drive, you know, their big cars. Yeah. But this is what's contributing a factor as we as a population grow and grow and grow. We have to look at how to consume less, even if it's for some people starting off maybe once a week.
Right, once a week, once a day. The New York Times food writer, his name is Mark Bittman. He's talked a lot about reducing meat consumption. This is coming from the New York Times food writer, and he's just written a book about, you know, his experiences and what he advocates. And he says he did it for human health reasons because he wanted to improve his own health, and then he ended up losing all this weight and feeling a lot better. His plan is what he calls vegan until 6, where he is vegan literally until 6 p.m. every day, and then he allows himself to, if he's craving something else, he allows himself to eat it. That's one way of doing it. Some people talk about, you know, something like Meatless Mondays, which is promoted by the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Just pick one day a week and go meatless. And something that we were talking about earlier today is sometimes that resistance that people come to this issue with is vocalized in the sense that, you know, what I eat is my personal choice. And absolutely, what we eat is our personal choice. Whether or not we support fair trade companies is our personal choice. Whether or not we buy sweatshop produced clothes is to some extent a personal choice. But I think any personal choice inadvertently has impacts on a lot of other people and on the planet. And so it's a matter of
smoking cigarettes is a personal choice.
Exactly.
And so that's what we talk to people about, looking at what personal choices you're making, and are they helping you, or are they hurting you individually,
and are they hurting other people,
collectively,
other beings. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So, and well, I just want to say thank you so much, Gowri Koneswaran.
Yes.
And you are with the Humane Society in DC. So this is her first trip to New Orleans, and we are happy to have her here.
Thank you.
And so thank you. Is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with right before we end our?
Just for more information, I'd encourage you to visit our website. It's humanesociety.org/farm, and you can find all sorts of information about factory farming and how it impacts animal welfare, the environment, public health.
And did you have a website earlier too? It started with farm?
Yes, that's one particular part of our website. You can get to farmanimalwelfare.org, and that takes you to our wealth of reports on all of these issues.
Well, thank you for coming down from DC. We love having you here in New Orleans. And once again, this is Cherylyn Tompkins coming to you from the 14th Annual Tulane Environmental Law Summit. And here you are. Peace on out from NOLA.tv. Thank you.